Shudder's new horror film, Shadow of God, dives headfirst into theological terror and moral chaos, raising the spine-chilling question: what if the Almighty returned not to bless the world, but to judge it and burn it to ash? The movie centers around Mason Harper, a battle-hardened elite exorcist whose faith and reality are shattered when he witnesses his long-dead father, Angus Harper, leap off a bridge and land on his feet, very much alive. Mason had already been rattled by unsettling news from Rome, an entire team of exorcists slaughtered in a single day by forces unknown, and when he sees Angus, he realizes that the danger isn't lurking in some far-flung cursed abbey, but right here, in his own broken hometown, in his own fractured past. Mason's return to the family ranch reopens old wounds. He was raised by Angus, a devout and increasingly unhinged priest, who believed that his son had been divinely chosen to become the vessel for God's second coming. Angus whipped and tortured Mason under the delusion that he was purifying his son's soul for the divine, and Mason, traumatized, convinced himself his father was mentally ill. Police intervened in Mason's youth to save him, shooting Angus dead in the process. But now, Angus is back, physically present and emotionally volatile, claiming he made a terrible mistake in life and is now trapped in undeath as a result. Mason, skeptical and disturbed, does what he does best, tries to exorcise the spirit. But all the chants, holy water, and rituals in his arsenal fail. The entity inside Angus doesn't flinch. Instead, it grows stronger with each holy word Mason throws at it. The spirit even taunts him, claiming the connection between them only strengthens its power. When Mason re-enters the room after regrouping, he finds Angus gone. In his place stands a being glowing with divine light. Desperate, Mason listens to his gut and does something no exorcist would dare. He flips the crucifix upside down and points it toward the being. It's then that Mason realizes the unthinkable: this isn't a demon. It's God. God himself has returned. And he is angry. Not wrathful in the metaphorical, Old Testament way, but burning with apocalyptic disappointment in humanity. The earth, he believes, has been poisoned by sin, greed, and indifference, and he has come not to save it, but to erase it and start anew. Angus, a lifelong believer in God's prophecy and in the sacrificial summoning of the divine, was chosen as the vessel. Mason, trained unknowingly from childhood for this exact moment, was meant to conduct the summoning. But now he is faced with a terrible choice: obey and help bring about a divine reboot of Earth, or resist the will of God and risk damnation. Meanwhile, Mason's childhood friend and former flame, Tanis Green, begins to piece together the terror encroaching on her town. After spotting a local congregation member casually driving a police car, she tries to report it, but finds the police force eerily unresponsive. Her suspicions lead her to the mysterious church of the Congregation of the New Rupture. What she finds there is horrifying: an underground cult practicing self-flagellation and executing members who stray from rigid doctrine, including a young girl killed for simply exploring her sexuality. Tanis is nearly executed herself before the cult realizes her connection to Mason and spares her, hoping to use her as leverage. Bo, the fanatical leader of the congregation, confronts Mason, demanding that he accept his destiny and complete the summoning. But Mason refuses, fighting back and narrowly escaping. He runs to a convenience store, seeking help, only to discover the cashier is another cult member. Eventually, Mason is captured and dragged back to the church. There, he is crucified, his hands nailed to a plank, and offered up as a living sacrifice to begin the ritual. As blood runs from his palms and delirium takes hold, Mason begins to commune with the being in his father's body. He sees visions of the future, a world reborn in flame, washed clean by divine wrath. He also sees his mother, who died long ago, standing at the edge of the new world with a child in her arms. The child looks like him. Or is it the new Adam? Mason questions whether God's idea of salvation is truly holy, or simply divine tyranny masked in righteousness. Tanis, now imprisoned in the church, breaks free and finds Mason in his crucified state. She pleads with him to stop the ritual, to fight back, to believe in humanity's capacity for change rather than let it be destroyed. Her words stir something in Mason. He finds strength not in divine fury, but in earthly love. He tears himself free from the crucifix, despite the agony, and confronts the glowing being inhabiting his father. He renounces the summoning, declaring that no god who demands the annihilation of his own creation deserves worship. The light dims. The being falters. Mason throws the upside-down crucifix into the being's chest, and Angus convulses, screaming not in agony but in what sounds like relief. The body collapses. The ritual is broken. The congregation erupts in chaos. Some members fall to their knees, weeping, others flee, suddenly aware of the horror they had blindly enabled. Bo attempts to kill Tanis, blaming her for the disruption, but Mason steps in and, in a brutal final fight, kills Bo with a shard of the wooden crucifix. In the aftermath, Mason and Tanis burn the church to the ground, symbolically cleansing the land. The townspeople begin to recover, though many are haunted by what they witnessed. Rome contacts Mason, asking for a full report. He lies, telling them it was a standard demonic possession, now resolved. He doesn't mention God. He doesn't mention the plan to reset the world. Because he knows that truth is too dangerous, too unmanageable. Mason and Tanis leave town together, not sure where they're going, but knowing they've stopped something truly unholy disguised as divine. In the final scene, we see a flicker of light deep in the forest where the church once stood. A child's voice whispers, "Father," before the screen cuts to black. Shadow of God is not just a horror film, it's a spiritual crisis, a meditation on the nature of divinity and the dangers of blind faith. It forces us to ask, if God returned, would we recognize him? And would he recognize us as worthy of redemption, or merely another failed experiment?